Well, there's been a lot of hype about the Greens' chances in 4 inner-city Melbourne seats. One such candidate running for the seat of Richmond is Kathleen Maltzahn, and she's here with me today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Paul.
Now, I think the big thing we've probably got to get to straight away is Greens' preferences from Labor, Liberal. It came out in the last few days that, indeed, the Liberals are preferencing Labor above Greens, which it's kind of harsh, but a lot of people are saying that puts the Greens campaigns dead in the water for lower house seats. How are you seeing it at the moment?
It's absolutely true that the Liberal Party is preferencing the Labor Party, and it's absolutely not true that we're not in the game anymore. We still have a really good chance of winning the inner city seats that we've been trying to win. So I think it's just made it more exciting because the contest is very clear now. It's Liberal and Labor backing each other, or it's the Greens offering something new, something for the 21st century.
Yeah, cool. Because we actually had Adam Bant on this show, and then, as we all know, he went on to win. So I think maybe we might be giving you the inquiry bump. You might be winning because you're on this show today. But
yeah, I mean, back every day.
When you found out that news, were you a bit worried about that? Like, were you kind of basing a lot of your campaign on mathematically, when it comes down to it, it's got to make it kind of hard, isn't it?
Look, yes and no. Certainly, it's easier if someone just gives you their preferences. But the reality is, in the inner city, lots of people don't follow the how to vote card. It's just there as a guide for people. And funnily enough, many Greens and many Liberal voters don't follow it. In terms of how we felt when we heard, I thought it was really interesting. I thought we've had Adam in the lower house for 3 months. We've had a debate on Afghanistan. We've got a committee seriously looking at how to get a price on carbon. We've got discussions on getting rid of bank fees, on same-sex marriage, and suddenly they're panicked. Suddenly the two old parties are coming together. So I think it's just a reflection of the way politics is shifting.
Yeah, right. So they're panicking, but at the same time, perhaps Melbourne voters are going to be looking at that and going, well, hey, if we get these Greens in, maybe... I guess most of the power was because they had a hung parliament, so they struck the deal, and that's how they got all this happening. So I guess that's what the Greens are looking to do. I mean, if the Greens do hold the balance of power in a hung parliament in the Victorian lower house, are they almost certainly going to go with Labor?
Look, it's hard to know what would happen. Mr. Baillieu, I think, has ruled out any discussions with the Greens, so that's, I guess, in his hands. What we're interested in, if we were to be in that situation, but we've got to win some seats first, is a stable government, progressive government, transparent government, and doing something for the people of Victoria. We're not going to go, oh, we'll back them, without knowing how we can change what's on offer.
You could be a bit of a Rob Oak shot. You could. You could do the theatre. If you get to do the announcement, make sure you get to do the announcement and just take 20 minutes to tell everyone.
I think only one person gets away with doing that. I think he's done that bit.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Now, it's interesting because obviously Bob Brown is the Greens, is the national leader. But there's all these Victorian Greens. There's a few Victorian Greens MPs, and then obviously, such as yourself, there's many candidates. Why do I keep hearing from Bob Brown about the Greens campaign in Victoria? Like, where are the Victorian MPs talking about stuff?
Look, they're in the paper. I think the thing about Bob is he's a bit of an icon. He led the movement to save the Franklin. People in the media like him. So often if he's down, he will be asked to comment on things, but everyone else is out there too
sometimes
talking.
Kind of just like, Bob, just go away for a bit. We want to get a bit of the spotlight. We want people to know who we are.
We quite like having him here too. So
you like Bob?
We like Bob.
Okay, that's fair enough. I think you probably can't get away with not saying that. That's fair enough. Now, on a more of a personal level, or at least on perhaps a professional level, I'm interested in the Greens because a lot of Labor and Liberal politicians, they come up and they get pre-selected and they become MPs because they've been working for their party for so long, in government, out of government, whatever it is. Whereas the Greens, because there isn't that big party machine behind it, you guys do real things. Like, you're an author, you've fought for women's rights and sex trafficking, that sort of thing. Give us a bit of a background and kind of how your actual real life experience might be helpful in the Parliament.
Well, I guess the first thing is that I lived overseas. I lived in the Philippines. I worked with women in the sex industry. I came back here and was again working with women in the sex industry, found out that sexual slavery was happening in brothels in Melbourne, and worked on that for a long time, and was able, with a number of other people, to really get some serious change on that issue. So I guess the thing for me is that it's not like I've had a parliamentary path, an obvious way through to Parliament and just see that as a job. My experience as a community activist is when you're trying to work on stuff, you need good people in Parliament. So having been on the outside trying to get change on the inside, I know how important it is to have people who get issues. So that's been the thing that has drawn me, I guess.
Yeah, was it a bit of a challenge for you? Like, when did you decide that you wanted to run? Because you've been on was it the Yarra Council?
Yeah, I was on Yarra Council.
So when was it that you decided you wanted to seek office? Because, I mean, I guess the thing, if you're doing good work in the community, then it's a question of, are you doing better there or do you want to work from the inside? Like, how did you decide that?
Well, I'd worked, I guess, on the outside for a long time, and it really teaches you that if there aren't good people inside councils or parliaments, you can be as right as you want on the outside, but you will have a hard time getting change. So, funnily enough, I had been lobbying Greens councillors, or in fact all of the councillors on Yarra Council, and I was a member of the Greens, but I hadn't had a lot to do with the party, and I was really impressed by the response I got from the Greens councillors. Greg Barber, who's an MP now, was a councillor then, and so when I first started going to branch meetings and people said, is anyone interested in council? I actually didn't say very much, but I afterwards asked somebody, what was involved, and then I had people going, go on, do it. So I sort of got involved, not with some idea of going on to be running as a state candidate, but just because it seemed to me that local government could do really important things, and I was interested in trying to change the way government did things, as well as from the outside trying to impact on government responses.
Yeah, I'm also curious because when you come to Victorian politics or any state politics, it's kind of to me it's a lot more about pragmatism and just delivering service and sort of like. Whereas if you have like a federal election, it's all about the big issues. What we do with asylum seekers, gay marriage, that sort of stuff. So I mean, what is it that you feel as a aspiring Greens MP? What's the kind of stuff that you really want to get in there and actually have an effect on?
I think it's true that a federal election is about big national issues of who we are as a people, but the state election is a lot about where you live and how you live. So what sort of city Melbourne is, whether we treat people fairly, and as well a lot of the big issue questions, the big picture questions. I mean, climate change is as much an issue in the state election in terms of things like Hazelwood as it is a federal election issue. But it is true, I think, that a lot of it's very tangible in state politics. So it's whether your trains run on time and whether water rushes down the streets and into the Yarra and pollutes it. And I quite like that sense of really tangible issues that impact really strongly on people's lives.
Well, Kathleen Maltzahn, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. We'll see how it happens in 10 days' time. We'll see how those preferences flow and I guess how the Greens do in the lower house and indeed the upper house of Victorian Parliament. So thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you, Paul.